Hello. Today I'm reading out the 6th chapter of my book, Philosophizer's Bible. Some of you may experience a sense of déjà vu, because in fact I cribbed quite heavily from the very first video I did back in 2013, entitled, Why Am I Here? When I made that video, I remember sitting in front of the camera and I had no thought in my head at all about what I was going to say, other than I wanted to say something about the philosopher G.E. Moore and his argument for an external world, which went like this. This is a hand. This is a hand. That is something I know with absolute certainty. If I can know with absolute certainty that I have hands, then it's impossible that an external world doesn't exist. An external world must exist if I have hands, and I know with absolute certainty that I have hands. And this proof has puzzled a lot of philosophers over the decades since it was first put forward in an article. So anyway, that was the only thought I had in my head, and I was going to say something about it. And somehow, the inspiration of the moment led me to the thought that philosophers, when they put forward proofs of things, they're really like magicians reciting magic spells. And you get that sense most strongly, I said in a previous video, if you look at Indian philosophy, their magic spells are different. And they're so totally unconvincing, the arguments are so totally unconvincing, you begin to think, well, maybe someone looking at the arguments of philosophers today will think of them as totally unconvincing. And in fact, if you look at the sort of thing philosophers were doing in the late 50s, early 60s, in English-speaking philosophy, especially in Britain, they're almost laughable. But I'll get to that. When I read out the chapter, because there was a sociologist called Ernest Gellner who pointed this out and was subjected to a storm of protest. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to read this chapter out, and if any more thoughts occur to me, I will say that then. Magic spells. There is something wrong with the world. Trinity to Neo, The Matrix. Your mind and senses scream at you, this is wrong, this is all wrong, and yet there is nothing to see that could give you a clue about what is wrong, the source of your feelings of unease and panic. What is there to do? There is nothing you can do, except live out the course of your life, perform all the mundane tasks that come at you every day, work, enjoy your occasional adventures. What did Sartre say? You philosophers, you felt this too, some of you anyway. And what have you done about it? I see you, frittering away your time with useless displacement activity, pretending that your thoughts, your alembicated reasonings, are taking you somewhere, while to me your words just sound like babble. Gibberish, as apes gibber. Human apes. Shelves and shelves of dusty books and journal articles. An endless stream of philosophy lectures on YouTube, preaching to the masses. No, sorry, I'm not impressed. There is something wrong with the world. Something doesn't add up. You feel it. I feel it too, the very same thing. But that's not a question. Feelings are just raw data. You feel what you feel. The real question, the real issue, is what to do about that feeling. What you're looking for is a magic spell. Why not ask Gandalf? He's sure to know. Yeah, right. Or Wittgenstein, writing so nastily about an amateur admirer of Professor C.E.M. Joad, stalwart of the BBC's 50s TV programme Brains Trust. This is a quote now. Have you ever seen a child make a grotto with leaves and stones and candles, and then creep in and out of the world into a kind of world he has made for himself?" Unquote. That was in The Listener, June 1955, reprinted in Katie Fan, Ludwig Wittgenstein, The Man and His Philosophy. It was actually a policeman. Someone had a friend who was a policeman, and he was an admirer of Joad, and Wittgenstein considered that contemptible. And me, the winner of the Joad Prize at Birkbeck. That's funny. Then how about this? This is a hand. I'm holding up my right hand, inspecting the lines on my palm. You can imagine that, I don't have to demonstrate it. Turning my hand around, I can see that my nails have been recently cut, and I remember cutting them. There is no doubt whatsoever in my mind that this is a human hand, not a gorilla hand or an alien hand or a prosthetic hand, and, moreover, it is my hand. Because it is attached to my arm. Not only that, but I can move my hand, as I have just done. I can move my fingers at will. I feel sensations in my fingers as I run them along the surface of my desk. And if I can know all this, then can't I also know, absolutely and without doubt, that an external world exists? That would be something, a clear demonstration of the power of words to dictate to reality. Apologies to all those who have heard this story before. Once upon a time not long ago, in the golden age of British academic philosophy, there was a philosopher called G.E. Moore who thought he could prove the existence of an external world by going through the kind of performance I've just done now. That was in his article, A Defence of Common Sense, 1925. This one article has over the years generated a huge amount of literature. But we're not interested in that. I'm not taking a position. I told you, that's not something I do. Let's step back. It's a question worth asking. What makes a philosopher think that a certain sequence of words constitutes a proof of something? Suppose you've never studied philosophy at university. Anyone who isn't a complete idiot, you'll say, would realize that if I suspected I might be dreaming that this is a hand, it wouldn't prove I wasn't dreaming. Or if I was in the Matrix, it wouldn't prove that I had hands. In the movie, Neo really does have hands, perfect milk-white hands that he has never actually used, as he lies asleep in his pod, his brain connected to a massive supercomputer. But there was no reason why he had to have hands, or even a body. He could have just been a brain in a jar. Moore thought he had proved something. His critics are just as certain that he didn't prove anything. As I said, I'm not taking any position about this, except to repeat what I've already stated before. The skeptic Pyrrho would point to Moore's argument as a perfect example of his case against the claims of reason. Why do philosophers, when they prove something, what gives them the confidence to think they have actually proved it? Back in the day, I used to confidently give proofs of things, so I know what it feels like when you say something and it seems as if things couldn't be any other way than what you've said. It's like a magic spell, Gandalf. You've said the magic spell, and now things just have got to be that way. Your proof, your magic spell, is your guarantee. But it really wasn't a proof at all. Then what was it? It was more like a confession. Forgive me, Father, if I am wrong, but this is how I see things, and I cannot imagine them being any other way. Like St. Augustine in his Confessions, he understood, he knew. In schools of philosophy all over the world, students dutifully learn the magic spells that are considered potent, while at the same time they learn to disparage the fake spells of other schools. The sociologist Ernest Gellner raised an uproar in 1959 with a book called Words and Things, which tore into the fashionable arguments of the time, such as the argument from paradigm cases or the argument from polar opposites. Who hears of these now? Maybe the arguments he criticized had a point once, but they had degenerated into dogma, as all arguments in philosophy are destined to do. As an aside, my sister Elisera was lucky to have Gellner as her tutor for BSc Sociology at the LSE in the mid-70s. She reports him as being fair-minded, rigorous and kind. Say, if you like, that the problem is with the way philosophy is taught as a discipline. The brightest, most creative, most imaginative students are punished when they don't toe the party line. I can't blame my shortcomings on the way I was taught. The fact is, I simply don't trust arguments or proofs anymore. They're not needed. I describe what I see, the way the things seem to me, or seem to me now, and I'm under no illusions that I could be wrong. What chance, then, of puzzling out the world? Well, just for the record, I wasn't one of the students who was punished for not towing the party line. I did see it happen, but as an undergraduate, I was still happily towing the party line, and I'd set my sights on a career in academic philosophy. Although it is true that I was already having doubts. I think the thought I had then was, I'm going to change it. I'm going to reform it, make it better. Of course, that didn't happen. And I completed my academic career as such, my doctoral thesis, etc., successfully. And that was it. And I learned a lot about the way philosophy works in academia. It is about, as I said in an earlier video, it is about sheep following other sheep, the fashionable arguments of the day. How different a subject like mathematics, though, where there's very little argument about whether something is a proof or not. There's very, very much less room for, what can I say, what's fashionable in the sense of what's in or what's out. However, having said that, I don't know enough about mathematics or as an academic discipline to know. Maybe someone who has actually done mathematics at a graduate level could tell me differently. Maybe certain areas of investigation, go in or out of fashion and so on. But still, a proof is a proof. Pythagoras' theorem, for example. Nobody's going to say, oh, well, Pythagoras made a mistake, actually. It's not a proof at all. There's something wrong with his proof. Maybe there are technical tweaks that one needs to do to some proofs to make them more convincing. But with philosophy, it's entirely different. If you carry the day, if you persuade others that your proof is valid, then it becomes a kind of a fact that's just shared amongst the academic community. Which is laughable, really. But I'm out of that, and I know better, or so I seem to think. I don't try to prove things. I just describe what I see. And that's all I will be doing in the remaining chapters of this book. That's all for today. Bye.